Well, I'll tell you the big one that's gotten me through life is never taking no for an answer. And it's the power of positive thought. I cannot tell you is huge for anybody. It's if you think it, if you really know you want to be there, you want to get to a place in life, then you can achieve it. Anybody can. You just can't give up. You have to be tenacious. You have to put the effort in, you have to put the time, and you've got to just keep pushing in the direction you want to go.
That is Warren Bravo this week on the Do It For Yourself podcast. Hey everybody, how's it going? Welcome back to another episode here on the Do It For Yourself podcast. My name is Ian and I am your host, your guide, and your leader on this little podcast journey that we are going to take together here this morning or afternoon or evening, depending on when you are listening. This week, we'll just get right into it. My guest is Warren Bravo. And Warren is the CEO and one of the founders of Green Relief, which is located actually up in Canada. And Green Relief is a medical marijuana company, and they are growing medical marijuana up in Canada in order to produce that. But the way that they are growing it is different than anyone else out there. And they use a technique called aquaponics, and it's very, very interesting. So make sure to tune in to that specific part and learn what aquaponics is, because I had no idea that this is how they were growing until I obviously did some research before the podcast, and I thought that it was super, super interesting. And then on top of that, the way that they actually use the fish that they are using for the aquaponics. And it's very interesting how this all came about, because Warren is actually from the construction industry. So he had no real previous farming experience or anything like that. So I'm really looking forward to sharing this awesome episode with you. This was a great conversation with Warren, and I am very thankful that we got a chance to sit down and catch up and dive into what exactly he is doing with Green Relief. So, without further ado, here is my conversation with Warren. If you want to just get right into it and get started.
Yeah, let's do it.
Yeah. So,
fantastic,
Warren. As I said here before we started, I want to give my thanks to you for coming on the show today. I was really looking forward to getting connected with you and talking with you about your company, Green Relief, that you started with your business partner. And it's a relatively new topic here, especially in the States. And as I was saying before, here on the East Coast, we're a little bit behind sometimes. So I'm excited to get talking with you about the cannabis industry and kind of how you are approaching the cannabis industry a little bit differently. So again, thank you so much for coming on today.
It's a pleasure to be here, and thanks for the invitation, and look forward to the conversation.
Yeah, absolutely. So you started off your career with an extensive background in the construction industry, and you were in the concrete industry specifically. So talk to me a little bit about your motivation to make that transition from the construction industry then over and into the cannabis industry.
Well, I have 3 generations of family business in concrete, flat work specifically. So we would be doing all the concrete floors in your shopping malls and auto plants and sports complexes and that type of industrial commercial institutional type work. And growing up, my father, busy man in the construction world, and I always knew that's what I was going to be doing once I got out of college and got my post-secondary education, and kind of jumped in with both feet and started working in the field and actually finishing concrete floors for about 10 years before I became management in that world. And that's such a tough business. Construction in general is a very, very difficult business, but I loved it. I have concrete coursing through my veins, and as I said, my grandfather started our family business in 1945 as a new immigrant to Canada from northern Italy. So yeah, that's what I did. I cut my teeth in the world of construction, and now here I am in cannabis. So yeah, it was quite a transition, but really it was my business partner Steve and Steve's son, and prior to the ACMPR regulations, kind of the federal regulations to the cannabis industry, if you had a prescription to consume cannabis medically, you could go get a license under this MMAR licensing regime in Canada. So it allowed you the ability to grow your own plants for medical purposes. So if you had four people or four people you knew with that same MMAR license, you were each allowed to grow X number of plants depending on what your ailment and prescription was. And so it was actually Steve's son that had one of these licenses, three of his friends. So between the four of them had the ability to grow about 600 plants. And I just got a call out of the blue one day, and Steve and I had known each other from the construction world for many, many years. And I worked as a subcontractor to his company because he's also in the concrete restoration business. So we've known each other in the industry for a while. And I just got a call out of the blue one day from Steve and said, these kids, and told me that this MMAR scenario and the ability to grow cannabis, and like all kids, they had great ideas, but they were kind of lacking funds, lacking resources to get this done.
Yeah.
And so Steve and I pitched in. I think it was about $50,000 each to their MMAR grow, and built them this little state-of-the-art growing space in Burlington, Ontario here, and that's where I got my feet wet in the cannabis growing world. I didn't know anything about it prior to that, but I certainly got quite an education through that process, and that lasted for about 3 years before we got our license to become federally licensed under the new regime.
And that's actually what I was going to ask you about next, was this licensing process, because I know that Canada is very strict on their regulations, kind of as we are here in the States as well. So can you talk to me about that process and what it was like for you guys to obtain your license? Because, you weren't coming from this big political background. You kind of didn't have ties in that aspect at all, really. So you were really an outsider who was applying for this, and I'm sure you were one of maybe thousands, if not hundreds of thousands, that was interested in applying.
Absolutely, and it was there are no in our family, there were no political connections, as you mentioned, and not in a million years, once we applied to become a licensed producer, did we think we were going to become one. The politically connected, I think the big pharma, tobacco we thought the big guys would kind of jump in, and all the with lobbying efforts and all the other things you have to do to get anywhere in the government space. It was through the tenacity of my wife that it took us 2.5 years to get a license to become a licensed producer. So we applied in early 2013, in the early spring of 2013. And it was that year through 2013 that my wife Lynn was back and forth with Health Canada. They answered questions. They would ask questions. We would answer answer their questions, and it was her diligence that got us through. Because being in the construction world, things are black and white for me. I'm not used to the how do we say? I don't know, the regulatory framework that these governments are throwing out, the red tape, and then all the communication. And they ask a question, and they ask the same question again, and I just didn't have the patience. I've always just taken the bull by the horns in my life and got things done, and so I wasn't used to the bureaucracy of getting the license and those applications. But as I said, fortunately for my wife and her diligence, she over that course of years, as they asked questions, it really forced Steve and I to formalize our plan and the aquaponics and our growing methodology and our security. And it really is a tough it was a tough application, a tough process to get through. But lo and behold, on December 24th, 2013, we got a letter in the mail from Health Canada saying that there are three things on that letter. If you pass your personal security clearances, so that would be like an RCMP or CSIS and Interpol personal security clearance. If we built our facility according to the regulations and standards of the ACMPR, and then we passed our pre-license inspection, if we did all three of those things, we would be granted a producer's license. And so it was the strength of that letter that we got on December 24th that we built our facility, spent $12.5 million building our first aquaponics indoor grow here. Wow. And then waited for Health Canada to come and give us an inspection. So a lot of blood, sweat, and tears went into that time frame, and it was a lot of sleepless nights, and it was quite an adventure. But here we are. It's certainly worth the time and energy for sure.
Yeah, I bet. And so, like, with your background in construction and your wife's background as a landscape architect, were there any sort of issues that you had in setting up your first space, or did you feel like you kind of had a leg up on some other people based on both of your backgrounds when it came to setting up that first facility that you were just talking about?
Well, yeah, absolutely. There were some amazing synergies there because, as I said, Steve is in the construction world. I'm in the construction world. Lynn's in the agricultural world. Landscape architecture. So yeah, it was actually Lynn who gave us the idea about aquaponics in the first place, and I know we'll probably talk about that a little more later on. But the construction side, we built a building that has never been done in the world of growing or the growing space. We kind of modeled it after a building in Alberta called the T-Rex Center. So we saw this concrete building that was buried in dirt. And we thought, from a thermal capability standpoint, because what we wanted to have was a building that would have replicatable processes every single day, which is the biggest one for an indoor growers environment. So we figured we'd build this concrete shell. We buried it in dirt, so we have a very, very high R factor, and we get that same replicatable environment every single day. So there's very predictable outcomes. But absolutely, our construction backgrounds helped in that scenario. Steve's people, his crews performed some of the work. We performed some of the work as the concrete side, the epoxy floors, and the special wall coatings, and the other things that we've done to achieve basically a GPP or a good production practice process for food quality growing. So yeah, it was construction certainly helped, knowing all the trades that we were involved with, and bringing value to our investors, because we built for $12.5 million what I figure would have cost anybody else in the industry if they wanted to duplicate what we've done would be $18 to $20 million building. So wow. Yeah, being in that world certainly helps a lot, and being in the construction world, it also helps you think through processes and other aspects. And a lot of people are at the mercy of general contractors and engineers to tell them what they want, but we had the ability to tell our contractors what we wanted as owners. So it was kind of a cool position to be in.
Well, and not only that, I'm sure you had contractors that you already trusted and you already knew just based off of the relationships that you had built as well. I mean, some of those relationships that you've built over the course of many, many years. And so you have a trust factor there with a lot of your contractors. And, that's something that's, I'm sure, obviously a trust factor in any industry is huge. But, when it comes to construction and being, responsible for something like that, I mean, having that trust factor was probably huge for you.
It was the biggest aspect of building this building was the people that you have involved, and you're right, knowing your trades, and it's a really big construction industry gets a bad rap because let's just say there are a fair number of shady contractors who we'll take advantage of those processes and extras and extra charges and other things that kind of end up back at the owner's lap, and you're sitting on these bills that you weren't expecting and cost overruns. And we can manage our projects pretty well up here just because of our backgrounds. We were happy that we just kind of got in under our budgets and built something that's unique to the industry. So we're proud of what we've accomplished from the building aspect for sure. And still learning as well. And even though we built, what we thought was the best iteration we could actually be from School of Hard Knocks construction knowledge, there's still now improvements as we advance and build out more buildings and advance the size of our grow. We're improving those components all the time. The big two problems with growing indoors are cooling and biosecurity. So we paid special attention and to those when we were building, and now we advance those as we grow and get better in both of those aspects.
Now, what about just security in general? I mean, I'm sure you have to have this place locked down like Fort Knox,
Yeah,
so I mean,
absolutely.
You said that your grow room it's all concrete and it's buried in the ground, so I'm assuming that that's probably pretty helpful. But green relief is all over the place. Like, people know who you are, and when I was reading, they have the address released.
The Google Map.
Yeah. So I mean,
Absolutely.
like, what does just your security protocol have to look like? Because I can't even imagine what you guys have to have in place for this facility.
No, absolutely. Well, Health Canada's requirements are very stringent for physical security for all LPs, not just Green Relief. Like anybody in the space, if you're a licensed producer, you have a minimum standard to adhere to from from that aspect. So the fences, just on this site for my first 32,000 square foot building, I have 80 cameras, all with intelligent video analytics. We have access controls. There's many different levels of security and secure rooms according to the ACMPR regulations, and Division C room with separate access controls and cameras logging in and logging out your times of people accessing the rooms. You can't go in the rooms unless you are a designated PIC, which would be a person in charge in Health Canada's regulations, and all kinds of things that make it tight. At the end of the day, I don't think there's any building that's so secure that you can not break into if you really have the desire to get into it. And our building wouldn't be any different, because if you wanted to drive a truck through our fence and through our overhead doors and have the alarms all start going off. But at the end of the day, what are you going to run away with? A few garbage bags full of cannabis, and you're going to break into my level 9 secure vault where we store all of our products, and it just doesn't make sense when you are doing a crime against our facility. We're a federally recognized, a federally licensed facility, so that means you're doing penitentiary time. You're not doing your local jail time.
Right.
So I think hopefully people are smart enough to know that. Just leave us alone. We'll do our business. You guys, take care of your own. It's just one of those things. So we did pay particular attention to the security, just from the aspects of the people who are working here. We want to make sure that they have a safe environment that they're working in every day, and I think we like to think we've done things right and well. But again, there's always improvements, and we're enhancing those security measures in our growth as we increase our canopy size.
And now, you mentioned it earlier, but I really, really want to get into it here, because honestly, this is the first time that I've ever heard of it. So Green Relief uses a technique that's called aquaponics when it comes to growing their cannabis. So can you explain this process, not only to me, but to the listeners as well, because it's a fascinating process. And when you think about growing cannabis, and especially if you've watched any of these shows on, Nat Geo and some of these other things, Underworld, and where they go into these grow houses, you see these giant plants, and you're just thinking like, oh my God, could you imagine how much water they're using? And your process actually uses 90% less water than the process, the typical growing process. So please do me a favor and explain what aquaponics is.
Sure, yeah, absolutely, and you hit the nail on the head. And resource this industry that we're in, north and south of the border, anyway, and globally, we're resource hogs. High pressure sodium lights and use of water, and then waste products that you're outputting into the environment when you're done with them as well. All big problems as water becomes a shrinking resource globally, and we're all going to see it being traded on a commodities index someday. But aquaponics is basically it's a symbiotic relationship between plants, water, and fish. Just like any freshwater lake that you see lily pads or bulrushes growing, they're being fed, they're being nutrified by the fish, the aquaculture that lives in that fresh body of water. So it's that ecosystem that we've created that's totally scalable. So we have, fish tanks, separated fish tanks with fish that we feed 3 times a day. Those fish create solid waste. That solid waste, to their manure, I guess, is broken down through a series of other tanks, clarifying tanks, mineralizing tanks, bioreactor, off-gas tank, basically water flowing from one tank to the next, breaks down that solid waste into a nitrite, and the bioreactor converts that nitrite to a nitrate, which is plant food. So all the NPK is provided, or nitrate, phosphorus, and potassium is provided to the plants by that broken down fish waste, and the plants, the water that circulates out of those tanks I just mentioned through our growing rafts, where the plants themselves are suspended on about 20 inches of water on styrofoam. So the roots are in the water. They're sucking up all of those nitrates, which are basically poison to the fish. And nitrates over 300 parts per million would kill my fish if they were exposed to it for any extended period of time. So those plant roots now suck the nitrates and clean the water for the fish, returning the water directly back into the fish tank. So that closed loop system, where we're only adding a 1.5% water volume monthly to our system due to evaporation and plant transpiration, it is the most sustainable form of agriculture that's used in the world today. As you mentioned, 90% less water than your hydroponics and your soil grows that are predominant in the industry. We're the only people globally growing cannabis aquaponically on a commercial scale. So it wasn't without its blood, sweat, and tears again in trying to figure it out. It was over 2 years of trying to figure out how to grow cannabis aquaponically, because it's an ecosystem, maintaining the eco balance, making sure the plants have all the nutrients from those fish solids. A lot of R&D, a lot of time, and hundreds of thousands of dollars of time basically went into figuring it out. And so it's exciting. It's we're breaking new ground in an industry that is not using resources properly, or maximizing the use of their resources. And I think we're just a little ahead of the time in the agricultural curve. I think more people will be adopting these sustainable agricultural techniques. They'll be forced to, as water becomes a shrinking resource over time. So yeah, it's very cool. We're the unique identifier in the industry.
Yeah, and I mean, I would certainly say that you are producing cannabis, at this level, and you're producing quite a bit of it. I mean, I think I saw somewhere that for just one of your harvests, you get about a pound of cannabis per square foot in your warehouse there. So
well, that would be cumulative. So if you talk over a year, so our stocking density, so we grow in a sea of green. So
okay.
Our plant spacing is very tight. We have basically one plant per square foot.
Okay.
And because of aquaponics, and because of the and we didn't know this when we started, but the aquaponics actually gives us 20 to 30% more yield than in the same time frame as any other type of growing system. So if you take that pound, or that one plant per square foot, and my 6 harvests per year that I'm getting from this system, it equates to about a pound per square foot. But if you're in a greenhouse and you're growing the big trees, and you're letting the sun dictate how big your plants are going to be, and basically a regular growing season, your plants are going to be 4 or 5, 6 feet tall, depending on the strain. and you need to leave 3 feet around each plant as you're growing, because you don't want them to grow into each other. That's when you're going to get your powdery mildew and mold problems, because there's no airflow going through your plants. So that 9 square feet that you've left for your plant spacing in a greenhouse, well, I have 9 plants in that same size. So if you're going to get 5 or 6 pounds from your plant that you've let grow all season, I'm going to get 9 from the same footprint that you've left, that I've left in my aquaponics scenario. So it does equate to more product. The benefit is that we don't have any inputs in our system at the end of the day. So we don't use pesticides. We don't use fertilizers. We don't use anything. There's nothing topically that's added to our plants. Actually, we don't have any inputs at all other than fish food. So we feed our fish, and so we have a very naturally growing plant. You can't say that in these other forms. Hydroponic, you're using commercial fertilizers in water to nutrify your plants. You're getting those built up mineral salts and nitrates in the flower, hence having to flush your plants at the end of the growing cycle. All the things, your greenhouses are synonymous with pests, bugs, nematodes, we use predator mites as opposed to chemicals to stay ahead of the biosecurity issues with the bugs. And so we like to call our product better than organic, because it's as clean a product as you can grow. There's no inputs into our system at all. So we're very excited about having that clean product out to the marketplace as well, because there are many people who can say that they grow a very clean product like ours.
And so when you started, the aquaponics was actually kind of like your wife's thing, and she started it in the backyard. She was using that to kind of grow some veggies and test this out. But I would have to imagine that with the process that you were just explaining to me, and all of the plants that you have, and this production that you are doing at scale, I would have to imagine that going from a backyard into these, 32,000 square foot warehouses, and so on, it's not just as simple as, okay, we're going to have more plants, and so we need more fish, and let's just kind of go for it. And you already hinted at it, earlier when you said that there was a lot of R&D that went into this, and there was a big learning process that went into it. But can you talk to me about some of these things that you've learned along the way, and how you scaled from a backyard situation to a massive warehouse situation?
Absolutely, and that was the learning curve. And basically, when you're if you don't have the license, you can't grow cannabis. So that's the reality in the Canadian market. So we had to wait for our license at pre-license inspection by Health Canada before we could even grow cannabis in the system. So once we charged our systems with the fish and scale them up, and before I kind of get into that, just as the scaling up the system itself, you're right. Starting in aquaponics is not for the system is not for the squeamish. There's a lot of work that has to be done to avoid nitrite spikes and ammonia spikes and things that would be detrimental to your aquaculture that are feeding your plants. But that we aligned ourselves with Nelson and Pade Aquaponics out of Wisconsin. So Rebecca Nelson and John Pade, they're the industry leaders in aquaponic models for food production. They had never had a cannabis client, and I was their first one. They were a little apprehensive about getting involved in the cannabis industry. We wanted to pursue the aquaculture and the aquaponic side because we wanted that sustainability, and we wanted to be good environmental stewards with our production methodology. So I pushed them hard and got to know them. It took me a lot of visits over to Wisconsin to kind of let them test out our products in the system. But as they developed a system that's totally scalable due to scientific data. So if you just look at that, for scaling up from a small system with small fish tanks with X number of fish in those tanks and X number of dissolved solids in the water and X percentage of dissolved nutrients that are feeding your plants. If you have that based on scientific data, scaling up is easy, because now if you want to make a bigger system, you just get bigger fish tanks, you put more fish in, you increase your water flow, you get the temperatures right for the plant you're growing. So the scaling up wasn't that difficult, but what was difficult was trying to figure out how to grow cannabis, because cannabis is a very fast growing plant, very specific nutrient demands at different phases of growth. and we had to figure out how to make sure that the plants had those specific nutrients at whatever phase of growth they were in. So that was the big challenge. And until Health Canada said, okay, Green Relief, you're able now to start growing cannabis because you passed your pre-license inspection. That's great, but we'd never grown a cannabis plant before aquaponically. So what that meant to us was that we, as our through our charge up phase, and as we started our systems up, we were growing everything, every herb, flower, you name vegetable, you name it, we've grown it aquaponically. But the biggest one for us, because the three plants in the cannabis family are hops, hemp, and cannabis sativa non-hemp, we grew hops. So we were growing these 20-foot long vertical vines vertically across our floating rafts to make sure that we had the balance of nutrients we needed to grow hops. Therefore, we figured we could grow cannabis, and that helped us out exponentially in that learning curve prior to getting cannabis in the system. So there's a lot to it. And even today, even you go in each of our grow rooms, there's some experiment going on. There's something that's helping us, or we're trying to, be bigger, better, faster, and stronger in all of our grow rooms aquaponically. There are no tutorials out there to tell you how to grow. Like you can go to any Chapters a bookstore, any big bookstore, and find out buy a book on how to grow in soil and how to grow hydroponically, but try to find one that tells you how to grow commercially with aquaponics. They don't exist. So we had to make up our own books. So and which is what we've done. And it was all School of Hard Knocks, and by talking to people who are way smarter than we were, Rebecca Nelson and John Pade and Dr. Nick Savadov at Lethbridge University, kind of the Canadian grandfather of aquaponics, and Dr. Rakosi down in the British Virgin Islands, and all these very, very smart people in the aquaponics world getting their input and trying to get it all to work. It was a challenge, and but now that we've gone through that learning curve, nobody can grow a plant like we can.
Yeah, and so I mean, it's quite evident that this technique is it's good for the environment, it's good for the plants. You're producing a product that is just levels above some of the other companies that are out there producing this product. But it kind of gets even a little bit better, because not only are you helping the environment and you have this closed loop system, but you're also able to give back to the community where Green Relief is. So can you talk to me a little bit about what you do in order to give back to the community through Green Relief?
We're extremely happy that we can by growing aquaponically. We have tilapia. We're raising tilapia fish, good solid protein. And if you're a vegetable farmer using aquaponics, you would be selling your tilapia as part of your profit model, and you're making money because vegetables don't have the same margin. We'll say a head of lettuce doesn't have the same margin as a gram of cannabis. So, but because we are using we're growing a crop that has a little more value, it enables us to be able to donate all of the fish that we purge from our system. So about approximately every 5 weeks, we have about 350 1.5 to 2 pound tilapia that we donate to local homeless shelters throughout the Greater Toronto area. There's half a dozen shelters that we ship our fish to through the Good Shepherd Society and the Second Harvest, they're called. So, we purge our fish. It takes about a week in a salt bath to get that farmed fish taste out. We've all had fish from supermarkets that you get that kind of brackish, muddy taste from fish that's been in a farmed environment. And so we give our fish a salt bath and kind of calms them down in that light salt water. Kind of makes them a little euphoric, and then we chilled our fish down. The last would be a Thursday night from a 72-degree water temperature down to about a 55-degree water temperature, which puts the tilapia in hibernation mode. Easy to net out of the tanks. We put them on ice, and they're delivered to the homeless shelters the same day. So the ladies in the kitchens there prepare the fillets and serve them as protein for the guests at the shelters, and it's very, very difficult for them to come by protein. So they're very happy to be able to receive the fish, and we're very happy to be able to donate them to a worthy cause like that.
And so, do you know about how many meals that you have donated and or kind of created for this shelter?
Yeah, we've served over 50,000 meals of tilapia to date since our inception in
Wow.
2013.
Wow,
Yeah,
that's amazing. That's absolutely amazing.
we're
And
very happy to be able to do it. It's amazing feeling for us and for our team and our aquaponics people to be able to give back and help.
oh, I'm
That's
sure.
what Green Relief's mantra is, corporate mantra. So
Well,
we're here.
and you also have another mantra that you really want to set yourself apart from the quote unquote other guys, and you want to be like the science guys in this industry. You don't want to just be kind of another grower. So aside from the growing technique, because obviously you're the only one who is doing that, is there anything else that you are doing with your strains or anything like that that is setting you apart from the other guys?
Well, we're growing, we're growing good, clean, high quality cannabis, but we have taken the path of staying in the lines of medicinal, and we're not interested in taking advantage of the recreation space. And a lot of companies do, and they like those 1 or 2 year long contracts, supply agreements, and wholesaling the product out to the marketplace and supplying the recreational market. Well, our products will get you high, just like the recreational products out there. And we do have very high quality, very clean, natural products. And I know they'd be well accepted in the marketplace on the rec side, but we feel the true value in this product is in as medicine. We want to help people. We want to explore the medicinal value of this plant and for specific ailments and what certain cannabinoids blended or individually can do to help with your migraines or whatever ailment you have and give you better quality of life and get people off opioids and other things that are just destroying their lives and bodies at the same time. So, we're looking at the value of this plant from the medicinal aspects of this plant, and we want to help people, and that's our reality. So we have very stringent and very high value methodology for our creation of our cannabis oils, and we have actually the most potent CBD oil in the Canadian marketplace now, and that's only because of our affiliation and my partnership with a company called iFame and iLab in Switzerland. My business partner there, Daniele Shibano, has been doing separations and isolations of cannabinoids for well over a decade. Working in the GPP or GMP pharmaceutical world. And so we take his IP, his methodology, directly transfer it into our laboratory, and we are doing the same type of separations and production. I think, cannabis oil from a medicine standpoint is the wave of the future, and figuring out all the delivery systems to be able to get it to work for everybody's physiology is what we're doing. And we're very happy in staying in the medicinal lines and exploring the true value of this plant and try to help people get through the day.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I couldn't agree with you more. I began using CBD about a year or so ago, just to kind of help with some anxiety and some things that were going on, and I haven't been able to find anything leading up to the point before I started using CBD. I hadn't been able to find anything that would really work, and I am not a huge prescription pill person. I don't really like just using a pill to kind of mask something. I feel like that's more of a band-aid, and it could become a slippery slope very fast. And so I tried CBD under the recommendation of someone, and I mean, it's simply amazing what this plant can do. And as you said, I really think it is the way and the future of medicine, because the list of benefits is just never ending, really, when you think about it. And it's an absolutely amazing plant. And so,
And that the big problem is that for your doctor to be able to prescribe you a CBD or a THC blend of products, there's not enough data, there's not enough science. So that's the big problem in Canada, is that getting the physicians on board has been a problem, because they like to see the double-blind studies and the
Right.
peer-reviewed papers and all of the science and data that you can accumulate by doing these studies, and so they can make an informed decision, because they're taking all the liability on prescribing you a product that they really don't know anything about, or why it works, or why it meshes into your endocannabinoid system in your body, and why cannabinoids are so effective as medicine. And we solicit feedback from our patients every day, and your story is exactly the same as thousands of other clients of ours that are telling us how the products are working. And whether it's straight CBDs or whether it's a blend of some THC or high THCs, they all have different medicinal values, and we want to explore that, and we want to create that data. We want to give the doctors the science that they need to make informed decisions, and that's the important part of what we want to do. And those, R&D is not inexpensive, and a double-blind study and peer-reviewed paper, and if you want to actually go for a DIN number for a cannabinoid product and get a pharmaceutical product from that's years, 5 to 10 years, and it could be up to $100 million or more. So it's all expensive, and it all takes time, and I think people are going to start seeing the studies and the research start coming out slowly, and we'll be piggybacking other people's papers and research, and kind of taking it from there and bringing it to the next level. And I hope there's a big collaboration, because it's so important, and everything right now that you hear is anecdotal. So you can go on Google and say, what does cannabis cure? What ailments will it help? And what's CBD do for you? Well, it's anecdotal. There's not enough science to back it up right now. So we want to create that. That's the most important part. But on a side note to that, and you were mentioning CBDs, and I do want to make sure that I always like to get this point out, because it's important that people know there are differences in CBDs. There are differences and made by the plants. I mentioned earlier that there's hops, cannabis sativa hemp, cannabis sativa non-hemp. There are 3 different types of plants in that family. And, hemp has been hybridized over the years. It inherently has, through the hybridization, has a very low THC. And people like using that for their CBDs because they don't have to do any separations of THC. They can just take that plant. It gets below the threshold of what the governments are regulating, the THC thresholds. And so they're putting out a CBD product from a hemp-based plant, which is good, and there certainly is value there. So don't get me wrong as I kind of move forward through my thought process here. But hemp itself has 50 to 70 compounds, cannabinoid compounds in it. Now the cannabis sativa non-hemp plants, the plants with THC, they have up to 350 compounds in them. THC is just one of those. So with our methodology and what we do through our chromatography and other methods, we strip off that molecular profile of THC, and so that still leaves us 349 active cannabinoids to give you a full spectrum cannabinoid profile in the CBDs that you're actually consuming from a medicinal standpoint. So there are differences, and I'm going to say a full spectrum CBD from the cannabis sativa non-hemp plant will give you the micros and macros and the smaller trace amounts, and just has more value from a medicinal standpoint as far as we're concerned. And we're seeing that through our patients and the feedback we get from them by soliciting feedback after our orders are placed and people receive their products. And it's really amazing to see how the CBDs are helping people these days. And we're really, really happy to be able to putting out that high quality CBD to the marketplace.
So are you allowed to ship it to the States then?
Unfortunately not. That's the problem. Until you guys are federally recognized, as our earlier conversation before we got online.
Yep.
We're on air. It's a little disjointed right now in the United States until it becomes a federally recognized industry like it is here in Canada. That 49th parallel, that border that we have to cross, is a no-go for us. We can't ship products south of the border currently. Even if it is legal for medicinal in New York State, I just can't take it across and ship it in. Unfortunately, it's the RICO statutes. The FBI wouldn't be very happy about me doing that. So
I bet,
I've got to keep my products north of the border. But we can export globally and to other countries that do have narcotics control and are legally allowed to import. So we have affiliations with some of the European countries. We're setting up a grow in Australia now. We're actually setting up into Los Angeles with the first aquaponics facility there, and we're looking forward to getting involved in the United States in the cannabis industry while it's still in its infancy, and trying to figure it out and show people there is a better way to grow.
And so, you just mentioned some of the accomplishments there that you've had, but from a family concrete business to, this amazing cannabis company, I'm sure you have just a list of many, many accomplishments, but could you share like one to maybe three of your just absolutely most favorite accomplishments that you've had through the last 5 or so years of this company?
Wow, nobody's ever never asked me that one. So, first off, I've got to say that our biggest, or the crowning jewel on what we're doing here is just being able to figure out how to grow a plant using aquaponics and adapting this sustainable methodology to an industry, as I said, that's kind of energy sucking and resource sucking, and we want to be the difference there, and we want more people to use these sustainable methods, and they're going to be forced to at some point in time. So getting plants to grow aquaponically, that would be the big one, and they're man, oh man, that's such a tough one. We building this company up from the original 12 people that I hired to 60 employees, and within the next year having 350 to 400 employees with our expansions. I'm just proud of the success, proud of our growth and the acceptance of our products. It's been great. The other, learning how to deal with Health Canada has been another accomplishment for me personally, and learning not to sweat over things I can't control. That was another big personal milestone for me, because in the construction world, I'm the master of my own destiny. I make the decisions, I make things happen, and the following day, things are happening. And in this world, waiting for Health Canada to respond to a question or a query on what you have to make sure that you're playing within the playing well in the sandbox, we'll say, could take weeks or months for responses. And learning that patience, it took me a long time to wrap my head around. I'm not in day-to-day control of my operation. I am with production, but not when it comes to the regulatory body that we're dealing with. So that was a big, getting my head wrapped around that took some time. So I'm proud of myself for being able to be able to manage that aspect of this business. So I know there's so many things. We're proud that we can give back to the community, and proud that I'm so happy that we help people, and we're making a medicine that truly helps, and we hear it every day, and that is huge for me. It just makes us so happy. It puts the smile on my face and makes me want to come into work the next day, every single day.
Absolutely.
So here we are.
Yeah. And so along those lines, where do you see Green Relief kind of going next? I know you said you're coming into Los Angeles to do a grow there. I know that you guys just recently acquired a new about 100,000 square foot facility. So there's been talks of plans, to go public.
Yeah, there's lots going on.
Yeah, what do you
so many
see
things.
happening?
So the public, we are going public. We actually just spent this last week reviewing our draft prospectus before we submit to the Ontario Securities Commission for a public offering. So we anticipate that sometime into February. Very excited about that. But growth, Canada's in a very unique position, and because we've legalized, we've federally regulated this cannabis industry. Other countries are looking to us to help guide their way as well. So we're fortunate that Canada's being looked at as one of the as the leader, we'll say for now, in this new emerging market, and has given us the ability to take advantage of global opportunities for the first time in Canadian history, ahead of the United States and ahead of the Europeans. That here we are, just purchased a building in Adelaide, Australia. So advancing aquaponics there. I'm in Italy the end of this month for 3 other aquaponic locations for hemp and cannabis sativa grows. I've got joint venture partners in Switzerland, as I had with iFame and iLab. We're also looking into Germany now as well for another growing opportunity, all advancing aquaponics. Um, in North Hollywood, in LA. Like I said, bringing aquaponics there was important to us because if any state needs the agricultural conservatism with the water use of aquaponics. California is it, but so is Texas. So Texas needs it, Arizona needs it, Florida needs it. A lot of the southern states need to be adapting this sustainability. So we're excited to advance the use of aquaponics, whether it's for cannabis or vegetable production. We're happy to help with either one of those, and we'll get systems, buildings, design, whatever system you want to utilize, and we're happy to be part of the solution to sustainable agriculture as we move forward.
Yeah, I'm sure that this is it's a very, very exciting point for you. I know that this has probably just been an exciting journey since day one, but now that things are, really, really taking off with this thing that kind of just started, almost as a vegetable garden in your backyard, it just has to be super, super exciting for you.
It's crazy how things work, and it's extremely exciting, and it's been quite a ride up until now, and I don't expect that to stop anytime soon. As this industry grows, this is just, as you said at the beginning, we're in our infancy. The industry's in its infancy, and we're excited to see where this is going to go. At the end of the day, we want to be one of the global leaders in providing very clean, a naturally grown medicinal product and help people. So that's where Green Relief has got its goals, its sights aimed, and we're going to get there.
And so, you didn't come from a pharmacy background. You had no political ties, even through your family or anything else. You had no idea what was going to happen when you put in your application. You actually said in the beginning that you didn't even think that you were going to be approved. And so you had the right answers to the questions that they were asking. You had them at the right time, and you were just constantly pushing and pushing and pushing. And I know that your wife was also a very big driving force in this. But I want you to think back to that point in time where you were just pushing and pushing and pushing because this was something that you really, really believed in. And I'm asking, if you could, what would you say to someone who is just getting started? And it may not be in the cannabis industry. It may not even be in business in general. It could be anything that they are thinking about starting. What kept you motivated at that point, and what motivation could you offer to someone who is either thinking about or just getting started?
Well, I'll tell you the big one that's gotten me through life is never taking no for an answer. And it's the power of positive thought. I cannot tell you is huge for anybody. It's if you think it, if you really know you want to be there, you want to get to a place in life, then you can achieve it. Anybody can. You just can't give up. You have to be tenacious. You have to you have to put the effort in. You have to put the time, and you've got to just keep pushing in the direction you want to go, whether you're hitting walls or not. You just keep going. Don't stop, and you'll eventually end up where you want to be. And that's been my reality for life. And contractors, we grow pretty thick skin. You got to put up with a lot of things in the construction world, and I've never let that deter me from building a successful construction company, and it's not going to deter me from growing a successful cannabis company, and it shouldn't let anybody else either. If you want to do it, jump in with both feet and go. Just go and don't stop.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I love that. So, Warren, like I said at the very, very beginning of the show, I just want to say thank you so much for coming on and sharing your story of building this amazing company that is helping so many people in Canada right now, and I can only imagine and really hope that is going to be able to help people worldwide. And I know that you guys are moving that way, but selfishly, I would love to have some of your help down here in the United States as well. So I want to say, first of all, congratulations and hats off to you for all of the amazing accomplishments thus far with Green Relief. And I can't wait to keep an eye on you guys and see how things go moving forward. And again, just thank you so much for carving out some time to sit down and chat with me. And I really enjoyed our conversation.
Oh, it was a pleasure, Ian. Thank you for having me, and it was great talking to you. And I look forward to anytime you want to pick my brain about anything, please give me a shout. And whenever if you're ever up in Toronto or up in the vicinity, please, you have an open door. Come and check us out and show you how we're doing things a little differently around here.
Yeah,
be happy to do that.
That would
anytime.
be awesome. Yeah. I mean, I saw so many pictures and videos of the facilities, but I think to see it in person would be a completely different ball game. So that would be really cool. And if I do make it up that way, I would absolutely love to take you up on that.
Fantastic. Thanks again, Ian. It's great talking to you. Thank you.
That is it. That is my conversation with Warren about his company, Green Relief, how it was started, and the aquaponics technique that they use in order to grow their medical marijuana. I actually had the chance to go online after doing this interview and before as well to kind of check out what their facility looked like. And if you get a chance, I highly, highly suggest jumping on either YouTube or Facebook, because they do have videos of, not only the aquaponics, but they also have some videos of what the facility itself looks like. And I know Warren talked about it in the interview, but the entire thing is basically buried underground in order for them to keep everything at a constant temperature. So when I went and looked that up, that was absolutely insane. It was really, really cool to see. So I'm looking forward to what's going to happen here over in the United States. I know that Warren is making his way down to California and quite possibly the East Coast as well. So it will be interesting to see what happens. And hopefully if Green Relief makes their way here, I will get a chance to meet up with Warren and kind of catch up with him and talk about what it was like to bring this actually over into a new country. So we'll have to see what happens there. But I want to take a minute to say thank you so much for tuning into this show. I greatly appreciate your support. If you can take the time, please do me a favor and leave a review on the Apple Podcast app. That would be very, very helpful for us. If you think of it, share this show, this episode, with a friend who you think would be interested either in this episode with Warren about his Green Relief company or some of the many other episodes that we have here on the Do It For Yourself podcast. If you are interested in making a monetary donation in support of the show, you can absolutely visit patreon.com/do it for yourself. There is a link there. There's a link in the show notes if you would like to support us here in a monetary form. Other than that, I would like to say thank you just for hanging out with us, and I look forward to seeing you again next week.